You should read George Eliot's novel, Silas Marner, not only because it is fine literature, but also because it offers an insightful and helpful perspective of work, wealth, and a meaningful life. Welcome to Thinking Wisely with Dr. Isley, where we learn to live wisely by thinking wisely. Published in 1861, Silas Marner was George Eliot's fourth novel and was standard required reading for high school students in the 1960s and 1970s, including this writer. It no longer is generally part of the required curriculum. The reason for this is that it has been deemed too demanding for contemporary teenagers because of its slow pace and the numerous authorial interventions to express her psychological and social commentary. Earlier this year, I decided to reread Eliot's classic novel. Well, maybe read it for the first time, since I wasn't the most diligent of high school students. I did so because I was looking for a quotation for my recently published novel, Chasing the Wind, to introduce the section on a character who sought fulfillment through wealth. I have to admit that the first part was slow going, but I think the novel is definitely worth reading. I was moved emotionally by the story, my mind was stimulated by Eliot's ideas, and my soul improved by her moral reflections. There are five reasons, and probably more, why you should read Silas Marner, despite some of its challenges. One, its moving story of redemption. Two, its outstanding prose. Three, its reflections on English society of the time. Four, its character portrayals. Five, its perspective on work and wealth. In this video, I will focus on the fifth reason, what Silas Marner can say to us about work and wealth. Of course, I'll need to explain the story and the character of Silas Marner, but if you want to read the five reasons fully expounded, you can find them in my blog post, The 5 Reasons to Read Silas Marner. The link to it is provided in the description below. First, the story is simple, but quite good. Silas Marner is a weaver in early 19th century England. He is falsely accused of theft by his best friend and is excluded from the religious sect of which he was a devout member. He moves to the village of Ravelo, hence the subtitle, The Weaver of Ravelo, and becomes a complete recluse. Without fellowship with God or man, he lives just for the gold that he makes from his weaving. He is redeemed by the appearance of Eppie, a golden-haired toddler who appears almost miraculously at his door and whom he raises as his own child. She restores him to society and to God with the help of others. The contrasting parallel between the gold coins and the golden curls of the little girl is a powerful irony. I remember gasping when I just reread it. The story leads us to reflect upon the moral choice between the love of money and the love of one's fellow man, and the consequences of each choice. Obviously, the main character is Silas Marner, who is one of the great and unique creations of 19th century literature. Marner was and is throughout the novel a naturally retiring, sensitive man who is a skilled and industrious weaver. He has a genuine capacity for loving relationships, and faith in God. These traits are crushed by the unjust accusation and subsequent expulsion by his religious community. His retiring and sensitive nature is so bruised that he becomes a complete recluse. He remains a capable weaver, but his loss of human and divine fellowship means that his occupational skill lacks its purpose beyond the mere hoarding of treasure. He becomes a miser. Although I dearly love Charles Dickens' Ebenezer Scrooge in The Christmas Carol, Scrooge is a bit of a caricature whom Dickens uses to convey a message of the need for charity and generosity. However, Eliot Silas Marner is a much more multidimensional protagonist and encourages us to reflect upon the nature of work and wealth, a crucial reading for reading the novel. The dehumanizing effect of industrialization on the worker was a common theme in the 19th century. Often, the description of workers as hands is meant to demonstrate this effect. Karl Marx's discussion of the alienation of the worker from his labor is more philosophical. Here is a passage from Estranged Labor in his collection of essays, Economic and Philosophic Manuscripts of 1844. Quote, the worker becomes all the poorer the more wealth he produces, the more his production increases in power and size. The worker becomes an ever cheaper commodity, the more commodities he creates. The devaluation of the world of men is in direct proportion to the increasing value of the world of things. Labor produces not only commodities, it produces itself and the worker as a commodity, and this at the same rate at which it produces commodities in general. End quote. Although one might question Marx's explanation, the dehumanizing of the worker in the Industrial Revolution rings true. In Silas Marner, George Eliot takes a different approach. As a weaver, Marner is an example more of the pre factory Industrial Revolution. What begins his dehumanization is not the nature of his labor in and of itself, but his mistreatment that leads him to cut himself off from God and human society. This results in a loss of one of the true purposes of labor. He works not to serve God and man, but just for the money he gets from selling his linen. Eliot writes of this effect in the quotation I used in my novel. For 20 years, mysterious money had stood to him as the symbol of earthly good and the immediate object of toil. Marner 1 2. He hoards the gold and delights in it, not in the quality of his work, not in service to God and man. He has become a greedy miser. His fellowship is with the coins alone. Quote, he handled them, he counted them till they form and their color became a satisfaction of a thirst to him. But it was only in the night when his work was done, he drew them out to enjoy their companionship. Section 1, Chapter 2. But the dehumanization of Marner goes further than just delighting in gold rather than in God and human society. He begins to lose even the point of artificial wealth, like gold, that has as its object the purchase of something else. Marner seeks to spend less for his own physical needs so that he can have more gold to hoard. This neglect of his own needs has a horrific effect that Eliot portrays vividly. Quote, he seemed to weave like the spider from pure impulse without reflection, end quote. He had to feed himself, but strove as much as possible to lessen the amount of food he ate and the time spent on it, just so he could produce more and more linen to sell to get more and more gold. The end was to reduce his life, quote, to the unquestioning activity of a spinning insect. 1 2. He was insect like in his existence, which his nature had shrunk to. 1 2. Eliot's portrayal of the psychological effect of Marner's greed is more profound than Dickens's Ebenezer Scrooge. He is not harsh or cruel towards others, as is Scrooge. Like Marner, Scrooge is reacting to emotional trauma resulting from childhood neglect and loss. For him, money seems to be his security against poverty. As a financier and moneylender, he is different from Marner, who is a craftsman. Marner avoids human contact as much as possible. He is alone and without a purpose in his labor, beside, besides gathering his metal companions. At the same time, Marner is not a laborer, a member of Marx's proletariat who is alienated from his work. Indeed, he is being consumed by it so that there was nothing else to him. But as I said, Silas Marner is a moving story of redemption. His treasure is stolen. Without his gold coins, he is at a loss. He grieves. He has no joy of holding them in the night and see them glitter in the firelight from the hearth. Then miraculously, it would seem, his gold has reappeared before Hearth. Eliot writes, gold, his own gold, brought back to him as mysteriously as it had been taken away. He felt his heart begin to beat violently, and for a few moments he was unable to stretch out his hand and grasp the restored treasure. The heap of gold seemed to glow and get larger beneath his agitated gaze. He leaned forward at last, stretched forth his hand, but instead of hard coin with the familiar resisting outline, his fingers encountered soft, warm curls. In utter amazement, Silas fell on his knees and bent his head low to examine the marvel. It was a child, a sleeping child, a round, fair thing with soft yellow rings all over its head. 112. The child, seemingly a helpless orphan, reminds him of his beloved sister, whom he had held when she died. The child, later named Epi, was the beginning of the end of his isolation from human fellowship. In addition, quote, it stirred fibers that had never been moved in Ravelot, old quiverings of tenderness, old impressions of awe at the presentiment of some power presiding over his life. 112. The inexplicable appearance of the child began to awaken in him the long lost feelings of a divine power that cared for him. Her appearance was the beginning of the end of his isolation from divine fellowship. It would take time, but eventually Silas Marner was restored to God and man. He also found purpose for his work. Marner tells the now grown Epi, quote, my precious child, the blessing was mine. If you hadn't been sent to save me, I should not have gone to the grave in my misery. The money was taken away from me in time, and you see it's been kept till it was wanted for you. It's wonderful. Our life is wonderful. 219. The gold coins had been put in their proper place. His restored work to its true end. He labored for the love of another. Silas Marner is a wonderful story and worth overcoming our initial modern limitations in the reading of fiction. Read it. It will bring you joy. You'll be changed by it. As always, comments are welcome. If you want to receive these videos automatically, click the subscribe button below. Also, if you're interested in my novel, Chasing the Wind, which deals with the issues of wealth and pleasure, knowledge and the meaning of life, I've provided the link to Amazon in the description below. Thank you for listening.